The U.S. House is looking at whether pandemic relief money is going where it should be.
Some argue these funds are no longer going towards their intended purpose. The Omaha City Council has just approved another $19 million in COVID relief money. Our Bella Caracta has the details.
One of the things we should do is we should end letting money go out the door that was tied to the pandemic. That is now essentially over.
That was the tune of the House Committee on Oversight and Reform yesterday, talking broadly about COVID relief money. Many Republicans believe too much money was spent on relief programs. But locally and more narrowly, Omaha's City Council had different conversations about COVID-related money.
Is there any way that we can get additional funds from the federal treasury on top of the $19.7 million?
Tuesday, City Council approved another $19 million of COVID relief for emergency rental assistance. Its stated purpose is for those, quote, impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. With guidance from the federal government, that meaning is broadly applied for this round.
For ERAP 1, there had to be a connection back to the pandemic, a direct influence of the pandemic on a person's financial capability to afford housing. The connection to COVID-19 for ERAP 2 will be based on the financial environment in which we're currently working through. The federal government has decided some of these lingering effects of the pandemic are causing financial strain, i.e. inflation, lack of affordable housing, wage stagnance, things like that.
This pot is much smaller than the first, which was about $95 million.
This is a longer program than what we had prior and a smaller amount of money, and it will focus on a lot of eviction prevention and those that are facing eviction.
The organization plans to do that by working with Legal Aid, the Tenant Assistance Project, and other community partners. Now, the guidelines and application are still in the works, but I'm told that'll come out in the next 30 days. On your side, Bella Caracta, 6 News.
Since emergency rental assistance started in 2021, Omaha has helped more than 13,000 families stay in their homes.